Good morning, folks. How are you doing? Today is the 8th day of January, 2024. My voice is a little weak because I'm still doing the smoking outside only thing, and it's been kind of rainy and kind of cold and kind of dreary, and I'm going out there sometimes in the evenings or early in the mornings, and before I was just going out to walk bow and do occasionally stuff in the yard, but now I'm out there a bit more, so obviously like an idiot. I wasn't dressing for the occasion, and I caught this little cold which has turned back into bronchitis. How lovely is that? Take one step forward and a half a step back, a baby step back, but I'm doing okay. I feel good. Let's see. Made 3 videos yesterday. Actually 4, a 2-minute video afterwards, yesterday morning. And what I do is I get them all set up, and then I just make them one after the other. And unfortunately, I didn't check how they were doing. None of them worked. There was something wrong with the some kind of file corruption. I got a file corruption message. So I don't even know if this video this morning is going to actually be uploaded. Who knows? The 4th one I made, I did make a 2-minute video when I was angry and pissed off and about the 3 hours worth of fucking work that I had done that was useless. But I didn't post that. That's this one here. If you want to, I could play that one right there for you for a bit, but I'm not going to do that. There's a bunch of news to go over. I've just posted stuff on my website. I'm going to talk about some of those links. I post a little bit from different places, just enough to like a teaser, so that if you're interested in the article, you can go there. It's not about getting views for myself. Lots of stuff going on, especially in Israel, especially in Iran, especially in Iraq. We're going to talk about that all very briefly because, again, I don't have the utmost confidence, for obvious reasons, that this video will even be usable. So we'll see. Anyway, happy Monday to you. I hope you had a very good weekend. Let's get right to it. Let's just first of all make sure we are recording. Supposedly, yes, we are, and we'll see how that works out. This is some stuff that I was talking about yesterday. Iraq has put forward a thing. The Prime Minister, Sudani, has put forward a thing saying he wants the United States to get the heck out of his country. We talked about this, or I talked about this yesterday. I talked about the origins of the PMUs, or the PMF, the Popular Mobilization Forces, where they got started, how they got started, that we started them in 2005 and 2006 with the Salvador option. They were PMUs, Popular Mobilization Units, and they were basically Negroponte-esque terror groups. They were fucking death squads. And we used them to try to keep control of Iraq back when the surge was taking place. Well, when we pulled out, those folks were still there, and they were still kind of organized, but they had really nobody paying their fucking way. So, not to let an opportunity go to waste, Iran stepped in, and they kind of reorganized them. They didn't want to be perceived as being anti the new fucking system and the Baathists in fucking Iraq. So Iran stepped in, rebranded them into the PMF, or the Popular Mobilization Forces. Of course, we don't like them now, so we created them, we paid them, we used them as fucking death squads, and then after we had to pull out in 2011, 2012, there was all that going on, and then of course the creation of ISIS. Then all of a sudden we didn't like them anymore, and now we're bombing them. So Iraq wants us to fuck out for a number of reasons, most important of which being what's happening with the expansion of BRICS, which is, of course, one of these articles I had posted yesterday. Talked about the fact, it was from Daily Saba. It talked about the most important, see if I can find it, the most important The most important development of 2023, according to Daily Sapa, the person writing for him at least, was the creation of the expansion of BRICS. It's going to have the most impact. It is the war. It is the war. And it is hardly anybody's talking about it, but that is absolutely 100% the case. Saudi Arabia, I think Ethiopia, Iran, and United Arab Emirates are on the cusp of joining BRICS, and that, of course, is the world island. If you go back and look up Zbigniew Brzezinski and his grand chessboard theory and that whole plan to control, if you want to control the world, then you need to control what's called the world island, which is basically the Middle East because of the oil. Well, that appears to be what China and Russia are doing with the BRICS collaboration, collective, whatever you want to call it. It's an opposition to our unipolar world order system. And we are very concerned about that, which would explain, I think, the reason that we had the what I believe to be the MEK. They say it was Daesh or ISIS. I don't think so. I think it's MEK. They're just trying to keep it fucking on the down low. But who attacked that that procession that was marking the 4-year anniversary of General Soleimani. His death, his martyrdom, his being murdered by the Trump administration. I think we did that. That was a week after Iran and Russia entered into a deal to do their international trade on something other than the U.S. dollar, to get off the U.S. dollar as the global currency. This is a big fucking deal. Wars have been started for less. So let's just keep an eye on that. This is from the Times of Israel. U.S. worries that Netanyahu will launch a war in Lebanon to save his political career. Now, we talked about that. I talked about that yesterday. And I pointed out that Secretary Blinken and others have been leaking information that they are telling Bibi Netanyahu he is not going to be allowed to pick a fucking fight with Lebanon and Hezbollah in order to stay in power. That's what he's doing. This is from the Times of Israel. And this was published Saturday or Sunday, saying exactly what I was talking about. That they understand in Israel that this whole thing is political and that he's doing everything he can to keep this thing going because he knows once it's over, it's done with. And there's been more developments along those lines today. Let's talk about that real quick. Israel just assassinated a Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. They are still trying to pick a fucking fight with Hezbollah. Bibi Netanyahu came out and said that he was going to he's going to remake the situation on the Lebanon-Israel border. Basically push Hezbollah 100 kilometers or so off of the border so that there's no threat of them attacking, which is absolutely ludicrous. It can't happen. That's like taking killing all the fucking Palestinians so you can steal all of Gaza. It can't happen. However, it can drag on forever, which is what he wants. So even in Israel, they certainly understand that this, they understand what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing, along with certain members of the leadership of the IDF, Mossad, and the Likud party. They know for a fact that once this is over and people start looking carefully at what happened on October the 7th, then people are going to be fired. And Benjamin knows that his time is short for a number of reasons. Not just that, but also because of what he tried to do with the Supreme Court. And then, of course, which, by the way, the Supreme Court just overturned today with a narrow one vote margin. They just overturned what Benjamin Netanyahu did and what all those people were protesting against in the lead up to the October the 7th conflict. They just did that yesterday. This is from Daily Sabbath. Can Israel and U.S. be mended after Netanyahu? You'll notice a number of these stories today involve Benjamin Netanyahu and the fact that he is going to be done. He is finished. This is from, this is the murder of Judaism. It's from a UJFP, the French Jewish Union for Peace. And they are saying that this is really giving a black eye to the name of Judaism across the world. And so they are calling for, of course, obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu to be gone and a complete withdrawal of all troops and a ceasefire in Gaza. I showed you this video here. I'm not going to show it to you now. This is, you can go look at it on my website. A number of protests taking place on Saturday, including, by the way, Zionists. A bunch of Zionists came out from the West Bank. And you would think to yourself, why would Zionists be protesting what Ben Giver is doing, who says he's going to wipe out all the fucking Palestinians, get them out of the way so they can take fucking... That's Zionism, right? Why would Zionists be doing this? The Zionists in the West Bank are pissed off because, yeah, that for a while that gave them the freedom to, you know, beat people, steal people, take more land, keep people from, you know, attending their fucking olive trees and the olive orchards and things, beat up more, you know, defenseless little old ladies because they're Palestinian. However, now after a certain amount of time, they're under they've come to realize they're not getting anything out of it, and they're terrified that the Jewish community outside of Israel, as well as businesses, look at fucking McDonald's is suffering. McDonald's is putting pressure on the state of Israel to stop what's going on. They're concerned, deeply concerned, that if this doesn't end reasonably, and they don't pull out and then just go back to the way things were, they're deeply concerned that they're going to be ejected from the fucking West Bank because the rest of the world is going to finally, once and for all, demand the two-state solution. It's the only solution, which means the settlers are going to be kicked the fuck out. And all the money that they've made and all the fucking business that they've set up and the industry that they've set up, utilizing cheap slave labor from the fucking Palestinians and the apartheid state that is the West Bank. Understand, you got two things going on. The West Bank is an apartheid state. Gaza's a fucking ghetto. So there's two different things here. But that's what they're upset about. If this continues, and it's not going to end the way they've been told it's going to end. People have been playing with their ambitions to take the whole of fucking Palestine and make it all Israel. They understand it's not going to happen. Now it's just causing more and more pain and hardship for people in Israel. Not just people in Gaza and West Bank and Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, but people in Israel. The stock market's having a hard time. They're losing fucking investments from outside of the country. And of course, they're deeply concerned that if this continues to get worse, there's going to be a growing fucking consensus outside of Israel to force Israel to remove all the settlers from the West Bank, to recognize Palestine as a state as per the June 1967 Green Line borders. That's the last thing the fucking Zionists, the settlers, want. So you understand? That's why they're protesting Bibi Netanyahu. They want him gone. The Zionists want a Zionist gone. because they understand the ramifications. Gantz, another Zionist. There's another article up top a little bit talking about how Benjamin Netanyahu was pissed off that there were leaks from the security cabinet meeting. They were fighting. They were throwing shit at each other. They were screaming and yelling. Because what's happened is the IDF has decided they're not going to be the ones tossed under the bus. The heads of the IDF have decided they're not going to be the ones tossed under the bus. They're doing their own quote-unquote investigation, not into how many fucking Israeli citizens they killed on October the 7th with their tank shells and their Hellfire rockets coming down from the drones. That's why they buried all those cars so that nobody could do tests on the metal and see where the high explosives came from. They're going to do an investigation, or they're doing an investigation, into the intelligence failure leading up to October the 7th. They're trying to throw Bibi Netanyahu under the bus, and possibly the head of the Mossad. They're fighting back and forth. And Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet meeting on Thursday, they're screaming. They're supposed to be there figuring out how to what's going to be the operation, what's going to be the plan after we get rid of all of Hamas and we have to take over Gaza and then bring in the Palestinian Authority so they can turn Gaza take it from being a ghetto into an apartheid state and hand over all the property to big business. That wasn't even part of their fucking discussion from what I understand from the leaks that came out from that. They were screaming about who's doing what and who's doing this investigation and how dare you do this and how dare you expose the fact that they knew that Hamas and the Palestinian resistance groups had a plan for this and were working on a plan for what ended up being October the 7th for about 9 months, apparently, in the lead up to it. But they all just kept pushing back saying, them? They ain't got the courage to do that to us, and we have all this security. They can't fucking harm us. They put it off. So the IDF is doing their own investigation. That pissed off the politicians. That pissed off the Likud parties. That pissed off Mossad. And so they're fighting like fucking Ben Giver's in there fighting with them. This dude's fighting with them. It was a fiasco. Now, since then, Bibi, Bibi has lost this thing with the fucking Supreme Court. They just held that fucking vote today, Monday. They just held that fucking vote. He's lost that fucking initiative. He lost that piece of legislation to curb the power of the Supreme Court and to make Bibi and the fucking Zionist a dictatorship. He lost that. And there was another piece of legislation that they ruled on that also harms Bibi. Bibi's in deep shit. He knows he's in deep shit. He's losing his war party member, his war cabinet people as well. He's in deep fucking shit. Deep shit. So what he's doing now, he's trying to push some kind of fucking piece of legislation through to make everybody in the war cabinet and all of his advisors submit to polygraph tests. He wants to know who the leak is, who's leaking all this stuff, that we were fighting and throwing things back and forth and calling each other bad names while we were supposed to be planning for the future of Gaza. There's no point in planning for the future of Gaza. That's why they did that. They've lost. That's why the fucking Zionists in the West Bank, the settlers, the crazy fucking settlers, have turned on Bibi and the other Zionists. Because everybody knows. They know at Haaretz, they know at the Times of Israel, they know in the war cabinet, they know in the Knesset, they know in the fucking West Bank. Everyone knows. Bibi's time is fucking short. Please excuse me. I told you I'm sick again. Israel, in spite of the fact that, as I showed you from the Times of Israel, they said the Biden administration is telling them stop trying to pick a fight with fucking Lebanon. because he thinks as long as he is a wartime fucking prime minister, they won't get rid of him. That's literally why he's doing this. He turned around with the IDF, the leadership of the IDF, and gave the command to kill a Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. Again, just trying to instigate anything that could benefit him. Now, here's the truth. The DIA in Washington, the Defense Intelligence Agency, has put together an assessment in which they say there's no fucking way Israel is going to beat Hezbollah in Lebanon in a straight-up contest between just them and Lebanon. They didn't in 2005. Why should they now? Especially now because they've got their forces split between still trying to fucking occupy and steal land in fucking Gaza and then defend up north against Hezbollah. It's idiotic. There's no way they can do this. Quote, if it were to do so, a new secret assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency found that it would be difficult for Israel Defense Forces to succeed because its military assets and resources would be spread too thin, given the conflict in Gaza. It's just true. But it doesn't matter to Bibi. He knows he's fucking doomed. From Politico, this is published today. The U.S. is dealing with an Israeli leader who's losing control. He's fucking doomed. U.S. officials have to work with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as they try to contain the Israel-Hamas war. But some are starting to wonder who's really in charge. The Israeli leader is trying to stay in office and avoid prison on corruption charges, where have you heard that, to linked desires that have made him vulnerable to the demands of the far-right members of the governing coalition. Now, an Israeli Supreme Court ruling against his efforts to overhaul the judiciary may make him even more susceptible. The far-right figures, notably Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, harbor deep anti-Palestinian views and are resistant to U.S. proposal that they consider too friendly to the Palestinians. If they abandon Netanyahu's coalition, he could lose his prime ministership, increasing his legal peril. Once he's out of office, they're going to prosecute him. He's going to have to flee Israel. That made Netanyahu reluctant to take American advice on the war, and it suggests that U.S.-Israeli tensions will grow as Palestinians struggle to survive Israel's bombardment in Gaza Strip. He's doomed. Here's where he's demanding a fucking lie detector test. I told you about that. And this will leave I'll leave this video with this. Hopefully this video will work. On his Substack, John Mersheimer, you guys may recognize the name. John Mersheimer has written this on his Substack. I'm going to read the first 3 paragraphs for you and recommend you go look at it here or go to his Substack and sign up for his Substack. I couldn't subscribe, but you can still read it. As I'm writing, I am writing to flag a truly important document that should be widely circulated and read carefully by anyone interested in the ongoing Gaza war. By the way, there's a link to the PDF here. Specifically, I'm referring to the 84-page application that South Africa filed with the International Court of Justice on the 29th of December 2023. Accusing Israel of committing genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. 1. It maintains that Israel's actions since the war began on October 7th, 2023 are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian national, racial, and ethnic group in Gaza. That charge fits clearly under the definition of genocide in the Geneva Convention, to which Israel is a signatory. Now, these are the references. The application is a superb description of what Israel is doing in Gaza. It is comprehensive, well-written, well-argued, and thoroughly documented. The application has 3 components, and he describes the stuff here. It's a good article showing difference between war crimes and genocide and crimes against humanity. and clearly makes a good case. Again, you can go to read this here, or you can go to his Substack here. And if you wish to look at the actual documents, the documents are here. He's got it well referenced. This is John Mersheimer. They are doomed. And I had thought that Bibi would be out by the 1st of the year. Well, so far, I'm 8 days behind. I was 8 days off if he's gone today. But he won't make it through the end of January. There's no way he makes it through the end of January. Because the only way for him to fucking stay in power, the only way for him to remain as prime minister, is to keep blowing people up. And I'm sure the IDF is all behind that shit. But once the U.S. gets on the other side of it, and the U.S. is on the other side of it, there's no doubt about that. With where Blinken's going back and forth and the statements leaking out of the White House, that they know that the only reason he's doing this in fucking Lebanon against Hezbollah is to stay in power. And once his own war cabinet turns their back on him and becomes a fucking dysfunctional group of kids yelling and screaming and throwing shit at each other, it's over and done with. It's done. The question is, what's Reconstruction going to look like? And I believe that the fear that the insane Zionist settlers in West Bank, I think their worst fear is going to come true. That the reasonable people in the rest of the world, not the fucking Michael, what's his fucking name, not the psychopath screaming and yelling and hopping up and down whenever you say anything about, yeah, maybe Palestine should be a state and live on its own. And then, of course, the crazy fucking Zionist fucking Jews in the United States hop up and down, scream at you and yell at you and throw things at you and want to fucking attack you. Those people aren't what we're talking about. But the reasonable people, the adults in the fucking room, will come to the conclusion that the only solution here is 2 states, June 1967 borders, the Green Line borders. Get all the fucking settlers the fuck out of the West Bank. There's no more restrictions on Gaza. There's no more blockades. Once you get that, and then of course you're going to have to put peacekeepers in between them. It's just all there is to it. It happens, South Ossetia and Georgia and all that shit. It happens. It can happen. It can work pretty well. It can go badly too. You bring in UN peacekeepers like in Haiti. That's a bad thing, but it can work, and it will work, and it'll be the only solution because they're not going to allow it to continue. They're not going to allow it to continue. The longer we stand with the genocide, and it's clearly genocide, the longer we stand with the genocide that's taking place in fucking Gaza, the more damage that's going to do to that other war I was talking to you about, the real war that I was talking to you about, and that's the war between the multipolar world and our unipolar system, our business system, our fascist system, run by the same folks who run the World Economic Forum, run by the same folks who own the Democratic Party and the fucking Republican Party and the Green Party and the Libertarian Party and the media and the banks. Once they understand, and I'm sure they already do, that there's a price that's going to be paid, and the longer we stay on the wrong side of this, the more nations will see that, and they will go to the other side. And BRICS, it's a recruiting tool for BRICS. That's what's happening right now. Is 100% a recruiting tool for BRICS, without a fucking doubt. And once big business gets involved in it, because in the West, all we give a shit about is big business. Now, I'll tell you this. Russia and China aren't communist countries. They are regulated market economies. They care about big business too. They regulate them. They tell them how far they can go. But you know, when big business people want to talk to fucking Xi or fucking Putin, Putin makes time for it. Xi makes time for it. They're not communist countries. They're not socialist countries. Big business has big fucking influence. Just the way it works in any kind of capitalist society. Unfortunately, they have much more in ours. Well, this is going to cost. They're not making anything off of Israeli businessmen wanting to steal fucking Gaza. In fact, they're going to lose. They're not making anything. Some people suggest, well, they want to bring in the Great Reset Fourth Industrial Revolution plan and use Gaza as a test strip, as a test market, like they're doing with Ukraine. Like they'll probably be doing in Argentina soon under Milei. Possibly, but what's the cost-benefit analysis? How much are they going to lose? How many nation states in that important world island are going to say, you know what, this is the tipping point. I'm not siding with the fucking people who are committing genocide against Muslims. We're a Muslim fucking country. Screw you. Picks up the phone, calls China. Picks up the phone, calls Putin. The cost is going to be too high. Bibi doesn't give a shit because he's looking at prison. And unless they get him out on some fucking private jet someplace, Bibi's he's literally looking at prison once this is over. And the people in Russia know it, the people in Israel know it, the people in fucking Gaza know it, and the people who are writing now, Politico and the Times of Israel and the New York Times, everybody knows it. How much bloodshed are they willing to keep silent about in order so that Benjamin Netanyahu can remain in power with his fucking Zionist friends? I don't know. Cross your fingers on this video. I don't think I'd be able to take it today, feeling as bad as I do, if it didn't work. I hope you guys have a good Monday, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.